So maybe if some it's online of some sort, and say if you can hear anything, or has it been tested that maybe you can, or put a thumb up or something that our colleagues could see whether you can hear us. We assume you can. Excellent. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this Viikki Sustainability Research Seminar, which we have here in Viikki. So we actually have people here, so I won't be looking at you in the camera all the time, and I assume all our speakers will also feel that they're speaking to the room, but it is a very nice opportunity to have a hybrid event. So Viikki Sustainability Research Seminar is co-hosted by Finnish Environment Institute, Syke, which is my institute. My name is Eeva Primmer. I'm research director at Syke. Then the other host is Luke, Natural Resources Finland, the Natural Resources Research Institute, and HELSUS, which is Helsinki Institute of Sustainability Science, which is Helsinki University organizer. So we have the three organizations have hosted this seminar series for a long time, and we are really happy to have yet another seminar on a very, very topical topic in Finland. So this is topical for Finland because we just had our municipal elections, and so actually municipalities, they might seem a bit kind of local or small in some cases. Finland has a lot of very small municipalities, but the municipalities play a key role in sustainability transformation in many practical ways. So municipalities are the ones that might be planning and permitting energy infrastructures. They are the ones that organize a lot of the local food catering systems, and they, of course, play a key role in how housing is organized. So municipalities have a lot of sort of practical decisions and practical responsibilities that have everything to do with sustainability transformation. So if we think that we want to advance sustainability in practice, we should really be interested in municipalities. And now that we are in a research seminar, it's a nice opportunity for us to think how actually research can, in addition to help understanding municipalities, also help in supporting municipalities. And what I did, I put these policy briefs here as examples, and we can perhaps paste them in the chat for those who are online, that were prepared by the Finnish Environment Institute just before the elections, so that we would, like, in a way, consolidate some messages based on research to practical decision makers and those wanting to be or wanting to vote on what kind of aspects municipalities could consider. And one of the policy briefs is more general on decision making and environmental aspects, and the other one is particularly on planning nature infrastructure into cities and more densely planned areas. Okay, so with that sort of mini introduction to the topic, I want to share our exciting program today. So we have Juha Peltomaa from the Finnish Environment Institute is just dives a little bit deeper than what I just did to what municipalities do in advancing sustainability. Then we have Hanna Lempinen from Luke talking about energy transition in municipalities. After that, we have Minna Kaljonen from Syke talking about food systems, sustainability transformation in municipalities. And finally, we have Vesa Kanninen from Helsinki University talking about low carbon housing and how the construction sector is participating in sustainability transformation in municipalities. So really exciting research and sort of glimpses to practice type presentations. And at the end of this seminar, then we have a panel discussion facilitated by Riikka Paloniemi, diving deep, and you can also then have questions to our speakers then. If there is time in each slot, then we allow questions also during the seminar. But with that, I would want to welcome Juha then next, and you will, I think that by just going like this, I put you up. Please, Juha.
Thanks, Eeva, and hello, everyone. I'm Juha Peltomaa. I work at the Finnish Environment Institute in the Societal Change Unit as the development manager. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is kind of the top level in the municipalities in advancing sustainability. So I touch a little upon the management side and strategical side of municipal operations. I have a threefold presentation. First, a few words about the role of municipalities in advancing sustainability, and then some words about how sustainability is understood and approached in municipalities, and then finally a bit on the kind of management side of sustainability in municipalities. And when I say municipalities, as we all know, we talk about the very small municipalities, but also the very large cities. So that covers quite a range of municipalities. First, the role of municipalities in advancing sustainability, and what could be more exciting than talking about the Municipalities Act. Why I do this, that it is on the first paragraph of the Act, it states that municipalities have to organize the services and well-being in a financially, socially and environmentally sustainable way. So the sustainability is really in the core of the kind of what municipalities are or why they are. Obviously, it's not that simple because there's several factors to consider. The cities or municipalities themselves do actions that contribute to sustainability or do not contribute. So there are effects what the municipalities themselves do, but also what they kind of make possible for other actors to do in the municipalities. And obviously a lot of the crises that we are facing currently are kind of, they happen locally. They are in municipalities where they happen for us as residents, as companies, and so on. And municipalities, at least in Finland, have a very wide range of tasks, even though some of the tasks are now in the hyvinvointialue, the other operations, which I will touch upon in a minute. And also, it's, even though they have quite strong mandate to do things, there's obviously there's some old phrasing in here, I changed it. There's the kind of tension between the officials kind of trying to advance things, and there's obviously the policy that is changing every 10 years, every 4 years, or national policies on some other kind of phases. Then there's the, as I already mentioned, the changing environment where some of the tasks that municipalities have had are now in the well-being service counties, hyvinvointialueet, and also regional counties have a lot to say how things are kind of planned in a larger scale. And then there's the resource question also in advancing sustainability. Obviously, they vary quite a lot from Helsinki to Rääkkylä, for example. So then a few words about some analysis that we've done in the strategical level of steering municipalities. Every municipality or city must have a strategy that comes also from the law. And in that law, you have to kind of say where the municipality is going, what it's going to do, and that's also a tool which is very crucial in when the municipalities steer their operations and also the operational environment towards sustainability. And that is why we did a research on the 21 largest cities and their strategies and how sustainability is understood in them. They are called the C21 cities. They are the cities that have more than 50,000 inhabitants and also cover way over half of Finnish population. And what we found out was that there were three ways to kind of understand sustainability in the strategies. First of all, it was a guiding value, kind of this general overarching target as a value in itself, that we are aiming for sustainability in the municipality. Everything we do is sustainable, and so on and so forth. And the second way to phrase it was to attach it to kind of practical problems in planning, in housing, in sourcing things. So it was a very practical and quite often quite sectoral issue. Third, quite interesting way to frame it was to make it something that makes possible to achieve some other things. So, for example, getting more people, getting flourishing businesses, being the most sustainable tourism destination, for example. So these were the three ways that sustainability was understood in the strategies. There's some references. So what does this mean? Well, the good news are that it is taken seriously. The sustainability is quite or very strongly in the strategies, and it's quite broadly there, covers a lot of the municipal activities and operations and sectors. And at best, it was used both as kind of this overarching objective, this ideal, but also attached to concrete things. And when this was done, it seemed that it kind of provide a very strong backbone for the actors in the municipality to do things. The strategy kind of steers things in the municipality. On the other hand, as we can imagine, sustainability is quite ambitious concept. So sometimes it was kind of this catchword or sticker or add-on on top of things, which obviously is not perhaps the best way to get things done. It's also quite often just kind of rhetorical thing that's have to be put there and has no kind of practical implementation attached to it. And also on some instances, when it was kind of everything is sustainable, how do you focus then on what you actually have to do if sustainability is attached to every aspect of what the strategy covers? Okay, then finally, few words about kind of where the strategy leads. It's one part of the municipal kind of management system. And we found out that currently the management models and sustainability, the relation is such that it's kind of attached on top of the current management models. It's kind of an add-on that, hey, please remember to be sustainable in this and this and this. And it kind of lacks the ability to tackle sustainability since it's a very complex phenomenon. And one way to rethink this is that kind of this continuous loop, how do we advance sustainability in municipalities? We have the strategy, which is kind of the first thing that we've now covered here. Then we have to have ways to measure where we're going in sustainability. Then we have to take seriously the collaboration with the other actors in the municipality, and obviously then learn, and then when we phrase the new strategy the next time. So it's kind of this loop which slightly differs from the management models that the municipalities currently have. I think I'm quite done, but I want to give you a bonus here, because even though some of the strategies kind of emphasize that it can be just kind of this add-on that when we are sustainable, we get more residents and we get more tourism and this and that, but it is also a fact that in the future, those municipalities that manage to be actually sustainable, manage to do things well, they are the ones that do get people. They are the ones that get businesses, tourism, and those kind of good things that the municipalities strive for. Okay, I'm done here. Thank you. And let's move on.
Excellent. Thank you so much. If there is a very quick question to Juha, but you will have the opportunity in the panel discussion. So with this wonderful encouragement, we will go forward. Let's do that. So we have Hanna Lempinen coming from Luke, and she will be talking about this energy transition and its consequences when energy transition happens in a local context. That's how I understood your talk. Please, Hanna, you have the floor.
So yes, hi everyone. I'm Hanna Lempinen from Luke. Still a relatively recent addition there for about a year or so. Before that, I spent the last about 15 years at the university sector working with themes related to energy, social and cultural dimensions of sustainability, and more recently, justice considerations. And today I will be talking loosely about the energy transition and what happens when energy transitions unfold or take place or are being planned in local context. Today, I will be basing my talk mainly on two projects, one that quite recently ended and another one that is currently ongoing. The ongoing one is a...
Sorry, I will ask you to just shift. Yeah, exactly.
Here, yes, and now everything is okay there as well. So yes, so the first one, Peripheral Visions, is like a broader Nordic project where we're taking a comparative look what happens or what it means when these global decarbonization agendas meet Nordic energy peripheries, so local, Nordic, rural, sparsely populated context. And the other one is my own, where I was looking at how the Finnish energy peat transition, peat phase out, and how that unfolded, and with a special interest on the local level and those who were working with peat extraction. And there are two articles that I'm specifically referencing if some of you want to go back to that. The first one that I have here is still awaiting for the final acceptance, so I couldn't put it down like where the journal is, but I put the title there so that those who are interested can Google it in about a week or so. But it's a comparative study of Northern Swedish and Finnish media representations of wind power and also kind of more broadly the green transition, and then one based on field work at an active PPOC and interviews with Northern Finnish small-scale peat entrepreneurs. So, some starting points that I find useful when thinking about energy transitions in local municipal contexts. First of all is that energy transition is not just one thing. It takes different shapes and forms in different localized contexts. And it's also, while political and popular debates very much emphasize the side of energy transitions as something that's coming, something new emerging, which it is about as well, the emergence of low carbon energy infrastructures, energy systems, green economies, but at the same time, low carbon transitions also mean phasing out practices, industries, livelihoods, professions, and energy sources that were carbon intensive. When thinking about municipalities, we're talking about them, like Juha's presentations just now, that they are active agents who are shaping and can shape, have the potential to shape not only the broader sustainability transition, but also the energy transition. They are very concretely responsible for many things like land use planning, permitting, strategies, educational issues, collaborating with other municipalities, investors, and industries in many ways promoting the energy transition, low carbon transition. But at the same time, they're in many ways shaped by the energy transition, that there are many kinds of social, environmental, economic, cultural impacts of these low carbon development projects. What I should have written here is that also these phase outs have many kinds of impacts on a local level. And these impacts also go beyond there's this a term or phrase that you can quite often find in newspapers, especially in the northern context, in northern municipalities, where you have the term tuulivoimavaalit, which means wind power elections, that actually the outcomes of elections are defined based on different candidate stances on wind power, and that's like an important criteria by which people vote. So these like traditional party lines or dividing lines of municipalities do not necessarily matter that more, but it's the candidate stands on wind power that matters, and that might then have quite broad repercussions for municipal politics. And something I forgot to emphasize in the beginning that I want to underline here, that there's a reason why I'm not talking about transformations, for example, as like Eeva was, but I'm talking about transitions, because nothing that would equal a transformation, a profound way or a shift in the ways in which we use and produce energy cannot seen in the Finnish municipal context. So we're talking about transitions at their best. A couple of more points that I would kind of like to raise when talking about energy and transitions in municipalities is that energy is kind of, even though in political and popular debates we're very much talking about energy as something like a high level item of politics and an issue of markets and this kind of something that does not relate to everyday life words and local worlds. But at the same time, I mean, energy is these things as well, but it's also a fundamental basic need for people. It's a service that many municipal companies provide for their residents, and it is a prerequisite of all daily life. And it is these all things at the same time, even though the kind of public and political discussions tend to forget the human embodied everyday side of energy. And when we're talking about energy transition, something that is also kind of quite often narrowly represented is the idea of transitions having these like being socio-technical endeavors or socio-economic endeavors, but they are also profoundly social-cultural in the sense that, at least in these two senses, that when these transitions happen, they don't come into empty spaces. They come to places that are being inhabited by people, by both humans and non-humans, where you have pre-existing social, cultural, economic, environmental contexts, and they enter these pre-existing local energyscapes. And another thing which it kind of underlines the social cultural component is that energy is, it's not only an employment, let's say, for people, but it's also for those who are doing energy as living, fossil fuels as living. For them, and for the communities that they inhabit, it's also a source of livelihood and a source of identity. So these both things make energy transitions and everything that happen around them also very much a social cultural transition. It's true. The next thing that I'm going to do is that I'm kind of going to highlight these two different dimensions or aspects of energy transitions at play, the ones that emerge, the energy transitions as emergence and energy transitions as phase out, and kind of what kind of impacts they have in local context. And then I will be finishing with some kind of general ideas of what these two might have in common. And I think this is a kind of a discourse or an imaginary that is very familiar to all of you, anyone who is reading newspapers on a daily basis, anyone who is listening to political discussions about energy transitions. And it's the idea of energy transitions as the emergence of these bright, bold, new low carbon systems and economies. And it kind of crystallizes that these both together, not only the energy investments, but the new industries that they enable will bring unforeseen economic opportunities also for places and people who have been disadvantaged or marginalized in the past. So quite often rural municipalities, for example. And of course, these kind of policies and these kinds of imaginaries, discourses are very much incentivized and supported by national policies, and kind of how they are brought into being in concrete municipal contexts is that municipalities are in many ways supported and kind of promoted and encouraged to make decisions that bring these futures into being. Municipalities get a lot of tax revenues for permitting renewable energy installations. And this is, of course, especially lucrative in a context where Finnish municipalities are chronically underfunded. It's not like that they would have a plenty to choose from, which makes these different kinds of revenues that renewable energy can bring very lucrative for them. And of course, this kind of this emergence of the national low carbon economy and energy system has only been further motivated in the last couple of years by the geopolitical tensions that have placed increasing emphasis on the importance of energy self-sufficiency, and for Finland and for municipalities to produce their own energy. And kind of, if you would crystallize this way of talking, is that energy transition transforms local realities and living worlds and turns around decade-long patterns and kind of lays out a path for a brighter future. And I think this also goes very well to demonstrate that when we're talking about energy, we do not want energy for the sake of energy. We want energy for the sake of the different things that it can bring. And of course, in this context, what must be raised is kind of the mismatch between this discourse and the reality that is actually happening, and especially that different municipalities are very unevenly positioned to grasp these low carbon opportunities and everything that is happening around them. And there is also growing local resistance to renewable energy development outside Finland. And much of this resistance comes from the expected and experienced impacts and injustices associated with these kinds of development projects. And these are just, if I would be allowed to choose two headlines, newspaper headlines that somehow summarize or crystallize what northern Finnish local energy transition debates kind of boil down to, are these two. The first one says that there were 46 regionally important wind power areas found in Lapland. Municipalities will have income, but reindeer herding will suffer and forest would have to be cut. And the other one is that the small municipality is going through plans for building 200 wind power plants or windmills, and that the decision makers locally have divided into two camps. So I think it kind of underlines how this is something that is actively going on and actively monitored. The winners, so to say, are perceived to be the municipalities and can get a lot of much needed incomes. But especially in the northern context, we have reindeer herding, so traditional livelihoods and indigenous populations and indigenous rights that make it a completely different ballgame compared to broader Finland, and also the deforestation, land use, nature loss that is associated with renewable energy development there, and that massive plans are unfolding in very small municipalities, and kind of what I would say is the biggest and most underrated or under-acknowledged, underappreciated impacts of these developments, or already the development plans, is the divisions that they are causing to emerge or re-emerge in these local contexts that are not necessarily grasped in any way by, for example, social impact assessments. And I think this is like more broadly thinking that the social impacts, when we're discussing social impacts of different kinds of development projects, is very often in terms of jobs. Who loses, who wins, who gets income from land lease agreements. But the impacts that these different kinds of projects can have, they're always situational, very context dependent. So even no project is alike in terms of what will happen as a result of it. And this underlines the need to have processes that thoroughly and collaboratively address and acknowledge and accept the impacts that these projects can have. And another point is that these impacts start taking place already before anything is constructed. Impacts start at the point when somebody hears that a project might be under planning, and this is kind of when the snowball starts to roll. And this is something that is massively impacting northern communities, northern municipalities, and these impacts are something that quite often go, if not unnoticed, then somehow under the radar and underappreciated. So now there is the other side of energy transitions as industry phase-outs. And in the Finnish context, we have recent experience of what this means when we phase out the fossil fuel energy resource or announce the decision that it will be done. And it relates to the peat energy industry, which has been in the recent years, during the last decade, nationally quite insignificant, but locally it has been still an important source of income, an important heating fuel, important source of livelihood and identity for those who have depended on its extraction. And of course, these impacts have been very direct and very concrete, that many local heat energy supply companies, municipal energy companies have been struggling to find alternative fuels to make their own business profitable, feasible, how to actually, especially combined with the war that Russia started in Ukraine, which led to the situation that wood biomass stopped arriving to Finland, that what are homes in municipalities actually heated with. And like said, by the national scale, these impacts, and like if you looked at the employment impacts of peat energy, 2,500 people employed by the peat industry, not a lot, but locally it could be around 3% of workforce. So in smaller regions, it was guaranteed that everybody knew somebody who lost their job as a result of this transition. And something that's been quite underappreciated in this process is that the side of livelihoods providing people meaning, identity, self-understanding, everyday interactions with their environments, and that has completely gone unnoticed when the just transition processes have been planned, which has made the failures of the JTF support, or the JTF to be able to financially support the people most impacted, even worse for them who have now undergone this transition or phase out. Apparently the colors that I originally had here, the Luke colors blue doesn't work, it's pink now, but I have a couple of, this is, yes, I maybe should give some feedback to our communications department, but this was originally orange text on blue. But yes, I had a couple of citations here from the survey that we had with peat extractors, just to show how profound and how diverse the impacts of these phase outs are. But they are very worried both about about themselves, about their families, about their municipalities, about Finland as a whole. What will happen when these things go? And also the I will read this latter citation and then move on. But this is from one of our survey respondents who said, literal translation is that peat extraction has been like a family member to me. It has been everything in my life. Hobby, summer holiday, place to relax, therapy, business, workplace. Now that my peat entrepreneurship is over, I have become severely depressed. And this is not unique in our data, but it's more like representative of the different perspectives that our survey respondents had squeezed into one. If I would have to look at what's kind of common in both of these sides of the transition debate in local context, and it would be the questions of justice. And there are many different kinds of justice dimensions at play in local energy transition debates. There is a question of how the kind of benefit and harm from this project will be distributed or redistributed, whether the procedural justice considerations, there are demands to have the right to participate and influence, and injustices experienced as a result of these things not happening. Then there's recognition justice, that are we actually recognizing all of those who are impacted, and are we actually recognizing the diverse kinds of impacts that can result from energy transitions? And then the question of how do we compensate for and restore this lost damage and harm? And of course, what has to be noticed is that these discussions are ongoing within municipalities. Who wins, who loses, who gets to have a say, who will be compensated between municipalities, and then you can go up to the country level, global level, and so on. But what is interesting, especially when you look at the northern context, is how it underlines how these histories, local context and histories, have a role in shaping the debates today. And if you look at the regional history of northern regions in any of the Scandinavian countries, for example, the histories of forced modernization, resource colonialism, they are still present here when we are talking about today's low carbon projects. And it's kind of that this understanding this makes it easier to understand why in all of a sudden when we're talking about wind power development project in Lapland, we are talking about the salmon in the Kemijoki River and the power plants that were built in the 1950s. But at the same time, there's this kind of, it's paradoxically at the same time when there's a lot of kind of historical grudges or burdens that are used to argue against these projects, there is very little explicit attention paid to the kind of global injustices and non-human injustices that are upholding the current system, so that today would become some kind of at the same time while these histories are remembered, then kind of the broader historical context and economic context are somehow sidelined. And it's paradoxical that you can acknowledge histories when it's relevant or when it serves you, but just not refer to them when they do not. And this is my final slide, that if I would have to, I tried to go to 3 points, as it's fashionable now, but I have 4. But energy transitions have the potential to upend local politics, economies, environments, and everyday life, both in the good sense of the word and bad sense of the word. And it cannot really be predefined what happens, and the impacts will be different in the context of each given development projects. And that municipalities' possibilities to make use of the opportunities of the green transitions to serve themselves, and their interest to do so, they are shaped both by contemporary conditions and their historical experiences. And national policies need to be in place to support the desired direction, but their presence does not dictate municipalities' decisions in the sense that they would make the kind of decisions that the state would in a way need them to do. And the just transition, that is a buzzword in energy transition debates. For now, they mainly serve to uphold the existing systems, power relations, status quo, instead of transforming them in any way. And this is something that I would like to leave, the question that I would like to leave you with is how to shift these debates towards something that could actually bring about transformation. That's my final slide. Thank you.
Hanna, and this was very local and very practical and very informative for all of us. After that, when Juha was looking at strategies, you are telling about this concrete transition. Now we would have time for a question or two. And I will have to, maybe I take my own computer to see if there's some time. Yes, please, Kari. And you can, hang on, we have to do this. We have this microphone issue. Please don't hear very far.
Yeah, thanks. Fascinating. It's a the industrialization has been, there has been big shifts recently, but they are also in history. They are like a industrial revolution in the 19th century and so on. Is there anything from the history that can be learned, that some lessons that could be like increase the justice? The losers and the winners are different now than they used to be in the past. But is there something that we can use from the past? Have you looked on?
Like empowered localities, I mean, or something like
that? Yes, and then how like new ways of new different industries, how they like have shifted the industries and those who have opportunities to participate in the production and so forth, and so forth.
Yeah. Can you recognize this?
No, I'm not sure if I get the question right. Could you?
Yeah.
It's like learning from the past.
A bit of complex. Yeah. There's you said that this justice it's a kind of difficult concept, and
yes.
And there are like people and group of people who are like losing, and we should take them into consideration. But the question is how to do that.
And are there examples?
Yes, and yeah.
Well, I've been working quite a lot with the concept of justice, and I'm not sure how much of a useful concept it is, because it kind of very often we take today as kind of the baseline for justice consideration, and then we start thinking about who wins now, who loses now. And I think to get truly anywhere with sustainability transformations, we would have to kind of be ready to give up privileges that we already have. Those who are losing now, like let's say as a result, and if we're talking about human beings and human communities in any industrialized countries context, those who are losing now are still globally very privileged groups and privileged individuals, and whose well-being and whose standards of living have been provided by, or like guaranteed by injustices experienced by somebody else. I know this is not the answer you were going for, but I think to truly get towards anything transformative. But then again, it's like, if you want to have like the superficial level answer, then it comes down to participation, not like just hearing people, but listening people, taking them from the beginning on board, truly having them have a say in what kinds of directions a certain project will take. If something is resisted, then that it should not be done, and so on. At the end, we have seen that how this kind of going past people, or like sidelining local experiences and perspectives that happened during the hydropower construction in the 1950s, how that is reflected in the debates today. So these, even though a project could go through now, the impacts of not listening to people, you will experience them later. And then the peat energy transition in the national context is another example of this, that the decision to phase out energy peat was made, and the people who were most impacted were promised compensations that never arrived. And this has had a dramatic impact on how they relate to the Finnish society, how they relate to democracy. And again, probably not what you wanted to hear. You would have wanted to have like a nice list of to-do things on how to make this happen. But I'm not sure if they, I think it's also a valuable point that it's kind of it's very like a depoliticizing idea to think that these transitions could, or let's not to even say transformations, could happen in a way that people would feel that, okay, this was right for me, this was just, because we should probably more acknowledge that it will not be just for everybody. Not everybody will experience it as fair, and that's kind of that just needs to happen in order for us to go to the directions where we need to go.
Excellent.
Third answer,
Yeah,
like you didn't want.
Very good. Thank you, Hanna. And we can continue on this. People might have got ideas from this discussion now to keep them in mind, because we have the panel discussion at the end. And now from energy system, which sounds the most technical, we go to food system, which perhaps sounds the closest to us, everyone, in an everyday basis. And Minna Kaljonen from Syke will be telling us about that. Please, Minna.
Hello all, and thanks for Hanna for a very inspiring talk. And in a way, I also started to think about here that maybe taking to the panel discussion, thinking about the just transition in a sense that what could be the role of the municipalities in these processes could help us, and what is the role of the level of different decision-making levels. As Eeva was pointing out, so I will be talking about food. I will also be talking about on a systems perspective, but I try to identify the levers for the municipalities in the systems change. This is maybe the red thread that I'll be talking about. I've been studying this issue both from the kind of a systems perspective and governance perspective, but I've been also studying the very local level organizing of the municipality services called the school meals, which has kind of raised quite a lot of also political discussion lately in Finland. But let me see how this goes. I will start from the systems level about the kind of changes that would be needed, try to identify some spots for the municipalities to act, and then I will go to the very, very basics of what is happening at the schools, and I will end up by saying a few words about the food environments, which is maybe something where the municipalities can have a bit of a role to play. We've been studying the kind of the needs for the food system transitions or even the transformations in the Just Food project, which is also looking actually also at the just transition within the food systems. And we have identified different kind of pathways that would be needed in the Finnish food system in particular, in order to reduce the climate impacts caused by the agriculture and food system. And we have explicated them in three different pathways. One is concentrated on the land use, and here especially also again the peatlands is a big thing, and the cultivated peatlands And then the second one is a diet shifts, meaning not only for the kind of for reducing the climate impacts, because it's a quite of it's not a linear cause and effect relation there, but also because of a human health. So it's in a way, which is again something that the municipalities have a big role to play, as Juha was mentioning, in safeguarding the well-being of the citizens and the health of the citizens. And then the third one is a technology-driven pathway, which is more than looking at these kind of different sorts of innovation, both within the value chain, supply chain, and then also these more radical food innovations. Today I will be mostly talking more about the diet-driven pathway, because I see the municipalities having very clear places to intervene there as well, also in the past, but also towards the future. A very key kind of a policy instrument here are our nutrition recommendations, and I don't know how familiar you all are with these, but the latest ones were updated now towards the end of the last year, and the environmental criteria were integrated into the recommendations, and some changes happened to the nutrition recommendations because of that. And maybe the biggest thing is actually the poultry, saying that we should not increase the consumption of poultry because of its environmental impacts. And I think this is an important message arriving from the recommendations. Usually it has very much concentrated the discussion on the consumption of red and processed meat, and this is also because of the kind of the health impacts of the processed meat in particular, and this is also these recommendations were tightened now in the new ones, so in a way that how much we should be eating red and processed meats is now was it 350 grams per week or so, and for fruits and vegetables over half a kilo per day. So so a lot of kind of arriving this kind of science-based, evidence-based recommendations from these recommendations. They are not in the law, they are not obligatory, but most of the municipalities, when they are doing their contracts with the service providers, with the food services, so they have in the contract that they should be following the nutrition recommendations. So it is a powerful mean for municipalities for the delivery of the service. Here are some figures of how we eat now, or actually ate already some years back, and how it relates to the novel recommendations, meaning that there are quite some differences between the genders, but also between the education levels. And these kind of socioeconomic differences are very important when we are thinking about also what to do at the municipalities. At the municipalities, they are in charge of organizing the provision of the school meals and the meals to the kindergarten and so forth. And this has been the right to inclusive school meals, or the right to wholesome warm meal for all, is a globally a very big thing. It's not something that it's a subjective right. It's a very kind of goes back to the very functioning of the welfare society, and it was introduced to the Finnish school law during the Second World War II. So it has been here, and from 48 we have had this kind of in our basic education law, and the municipalities are the ones who are to kind of take care of that. This is delivered as the law says, and it has helped to, in a way, to balance the socioeconomic differences in eating, so that it's not kind of that each one of us has to right to the school meal. But there are lots of dynamics going on on there with that respect as well, how we eat and how this subjective right is actually put into the practice. With respect to production, now when we are thinking about really this kind of a plant-based eating and these new novel nutrition recommendations, we can improve a lot in our self-sufficiency of plant proteins, especially with regards to legumes. These are the quite recent figures from Luke, from the Natural Resources Institute, Jansik and others, and they have counted quite carefully what is the self-sufficiency rate in different plant protein plant proteins, and what is the potential of actually increasing the production of the plant proteins and especially the legumes. And the self-sufficiency rate for the legumes at the moment is only 54%. With grains, it's much better, of course. But I would like to highlight this on the right-hand side, the figure. Sorry, these are in Finnish, but some of you can follow. But for example, by introducing better the legumes to the crop rotation, so there could be quite much of a potential for increasing the production of the legumes, and with other kind of a technical and this and that things, the self-sufficiency of the production could be increased quite a lot. So there is much to improve in those realms. And I will also refer here to what Hanna was talking about, of this kind of emergency curve of innovations, of novel. Hanna was talking about the energy innovations, but here I'll be talking about the food innovations and especially the plant proteins here, and then the phase-out curve. So this is the kind of the curve that we in the transitions literature are utilizing quite a lot. And we also published in the beginning of this year this one opinion, or actually not an opinion paper, but actually a study where we gathered together from the existing literature and the food system actors that what kind of a policy mixes would be needed to strengthen the plant protein value chains in Finland. And we utilized this kind of a thinking in the X-curve about the innovations and the phase-out, highlighting the kind of a different intervention points where public policies can have a role to play. And what is interesting here is that actually with respect to innovation curve, so our argument is that actually, especially during the acceleration phase of taking more momentum to the new plant protein products and the food innovations, the municipalities have a role to play, and this goes very much to the procurement practices that are taking place in the municipalities for the novel products, and how they kind of the food services, how they procure the plant, for example, the novel plant-based products to the meal services. But most importantly, actually, is the point 4, which is kind of a very much the just transition point, like the supporting the phase out and supporting people, be it the farmers or us all, or in this case also the kind of the children and the youth in learning the new eating habits. And here are some of the kind of a very concrete policy measures that sorry, this is kind of has all these kind of things with the dias. How the municipalities can support especially the dietary change. They are in a key role in implementation of the novel nutrition recommendations via the food services, but there is a lot to do within the food services, and a lot has been done already, but we are actually arguing that we should develop this kind of a better what is this now, incentive programs within the food system services for the personnel to really develop good and tasty food and meals and so forth. So it's a kind of a learning to plan the school meal menus in a new way and very much also to make tasty food. There is also about the kind of reskilling and additional education for the professionals in this respect. And then very importantly also a better integration of a food education to school curricula. We have it on a national level, but municipalities differ a lot in this respect. So meaning again here that it's not only the food services actually who are delivering the well-being services to the municipality, but it's actually the whole education system which should take a much prominent role in this realm. And this partly comes very much also from our research that we have done with the youth and students and the pupils. We have engaged the pupils themselves in thinking about how to develop the more sustainable school meals, and actually the things that the pupils raise up are quite different from the ones that the adults do. The adults tend to talk about that if we are serving the plant-based food first in the line, or how do we procure and what are the procurement practices and so forth. But the pupils actually, they say that I want to highlight this peaceful food environment. That actually that if there would be more time to eat, if there would be less noise, if the school would take a more responsibility in organizing the school meal practice in such a manner that there would be a more peaceful food environment, my argument is that we would do already quite a lot. The pupils are also arguing for more variety and flavor of the food, and very much also arguing about that they do see the need for lessening the meat, but they have quite creative solutions in which ways the school meal services could kind of increase the variety of vegetables served and so forth. So it's a whole lot of things that can be done there within the school meals environment. And this actually goes, I will not go to that. I will just say a few words about the food environment. There is quite much research around the food environment nowadays. It arrives both from the nutrition studies, but also it's kind of thinking about what are the kind of how to better capture that what is actually a food environment so that the policies could target it. The food environment is something that we are kind of in our everyday lives, how we supply, how we eat, how we all the kind of not the choice environment that is around us in guiding how we eat. Usually it's been kind of conceptualized into a personal and external domain, that there are structures in the food environment, for example, that what is in the retail, how the retail is functioning, and what is the choice architecture in the retail environment, and then kind of the personal domain in thinking about what kind of choices, individual choices we are doing for the food. But I'd say that we should maybe more concentrate, understand better the social domain as well, how we share food. And this is also kind of going back to the municipalities and this kind of a public food services, in a sense that they are very important food environment in Finland, which has a quite big potential for impact if we would appreciate also the sharing element there and kind of devote more time to that. And I'm a sociologist by origin, but then I moved into all other stuff. And lately I came into this great article written by Claude Fischler already in 2011 about commensality. it's about sharing food, and how actually when you share the food, it's the very basics of the organization of our culture and so forth. And there's lots of rules, rules for social organization in how we share food and how we prepare and share and eat together. And we should go back to that to understand it a bit better. And another thing which kind of touched me, it's still in HAM, in the Helsinki Art Museum, the art exhibition by Tove Jansson, and the upstairs is filled with Tove's frescoes. And these were also painted in the 50s, in the very, like after the war, when also the school meal system was introduced. And all these frescoes, they were in the diners. They were in the be they for the workers or be they for the, this one is from Karjaan Yhteiskoulu, from the school. So they really invested in making this kind of a nice environment to eat and people to come together. And it was kind of a shocking, because then I realized that kind of all this is something that we are not paying any attention to at the moment because of the money. And actually the school meals at the moment, they are produced with very little pennies for our children. And I think that the municipalities can have a big, could do better there. It's for the well-being of the youth and the children and their mental well-being as well. So this is from the 50s. Another when they only served the soup. Now we are fighting around if it's meat or veggies, and then it was about the soup, and they had to bring their own milk with them and so forth. It tells a lot about the society, how the school meals are organized. Sorry, I went a bit to a history, but I'll stop here.
Thank you, Minna. So we also have time for a question to you, Minna. Don't escape yet. If someone wants to ask like a short question, you will also answer short then, right? But before the panel discussion, would anyone want to ask a question? I'm interested in this framing food environment, because we are always thinking of environment as the sort of ecosystemic environment that takes all the hits from us with the chemicals, and that is it eating environment or the food chain environment, or is it really the entire food system environment that you are talking about? Like yeah. You can also use this. You can use this, and you can even look in the
there are a bit of different traditions in framing the concept, but actually the very origins is very from the socio-ecological systems. But nowadays it's there is a tendency of using it only as a food environment for individual choice.
Right.
And that is far too narrow perspective into it.
Yeah.
So I very much suggest to go back to the very original framings of it. So it comes very much from the socio-ecological thinking as well. But there are different streams in it, and then one stream is understanding the food environment as a very structural, something which is kind of a dictating, like these food deserts and so forth, especially in the United States and so forth. But I mean, for example, in the Finnish case, so looking at the public food environment as well is quite would be helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. Then I again think about eating environment. Yeah, I listened to a radio program last week on the price of coffee when it's doubling and quadrupling, like so coffee price goes up very fast, and we Finns have been thinking of coffee in numbers of cups rather than like how we enjoy our coffee. Like I'm a coffee addict. Yeah, that in some way it's price shocks and shocks in the way that Hanna was talking in the energy system, that the energy system transition is studied very much through shocks, but food system perhaps less so. Food transition and food
For the price.
price shocks. Yeah. Yeah, super interesting. Yeah, let's continue in the panel discussion. And now we go to the third element, which is the housing, which is perhaps then in some way the core function in the municipalities. So it's easy for us to understand how municipalities are relevant here. And Vesa Kanninen will be telling about climate-wise housing. So please.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, indeed you could say that housing is one of the core elements, but let's not forget that we need food and we need energy as well. So I think it's a very nice mix of different kinds of core elements today here. Okay, so my name is Vesa Kanninen. I am a geographer, and my specialty has been strategic spatial planning. So I'm not a housing scholar at all. However, for 5 years now, I've been here in Viikki working on a strategic research project and coordinating it mainly. However, also been participating in research, and this what I'm now telling you a little bit about is what I've been mostly involved in. So let's start with the project first, Decarbon Home. So it is about decarbonizing, and we are very specific, suburban and rural housing. So we've already concentrated on certain aspects of housing. And then citizens as agents of change. So we are taking a sort of a citizen's point of view as a whole project. However, obviously, different studies tackle different aspects of housing. Okay, and we are a consortium of 5 universities, and there are 3 universities and then Syke and Luke. So we are very much at home here because the University of Helsinki departments are forest economics here, and then forest sciences, and then geosciences and geography from Kumpula. Okay. And don't have much time to talk about the project as such, but what we are doing actually is very much concentrating on solutions and trying to find ways to accelerate the transition. So we are relying on prior studies to an extent, and then we've been trying to look at specifically about the citizens' point of view. However, today I'm talking about municipalities. So I try to focus on what we have been doing with the municipalities and what have we found out. Okay, so much of this was already brought out before. I just wanted to make sure that we have some idea of what a municipality is. So the key elements, local democracy is of course the most important element in a municipality. However, I found that these are concerning housing. Of course, planning is another key element. However weird it is that I'm a sort of planner by education, but I will not be talking about planning today. But maybe we can come back to that later on in the panel. And of course, like mentioned, there are a lot of service responsibilities for the municipality. And like already mentioned, there are many laws and statutes that guide how municipalities act. However, I do want to stress that municipalities also have great autonomy. So everything that's been said here today, municipalities have sort of can touch upon all of these things, some less, some more. And I think that it's also a very interesting point to explore what a municipality is in this respect. So what can it do and what cannot it do, and how does it go about its business, especially if we're talking about sustainability transition or indeed transformation and housing. All right. So I think much of the general stuff that we've found has already been said. So some of the key challenges that municipalities are facing when they are tackling sustainable housing, and so I think sustainability issues also in more general terms. So first is the fragmented nature of what was mentioned, that these are very complex issues, and they are not evenly distributed between municipalities, between people, but also between the municipal organizations and municipality as an institution. Okay. So, and if I want to stay at the strategic level, then there is obviously the conflicting goals, especially in the housing sector, between growth orientation, that is sort of the economic foundation of a municipality, and then other aspects of sustainability. And this becomes very well visible in constructing new houses. How much does a municipality have leeway in trying to push for sustainable solutions? That's one issue that we've been trying to discuss with our partner municipalities, and it's kind of I wouldn't like to use the word shocking, but it is rather shocking how small that portion of Finland is where there is actually room for negotiating in new housing production about sustainability issues, about climate wisdom, about these kind of solutions that are beyond what the laws and regulations demand. So, and here, of course, we talk about money, but we also talk about power. Both have been very much present already here today. So we'll come back to that maybe in the panel in more detail. But okay, and then, like I mentioned, municipality is about local democracy. So what that also means, that especially now that we've seen changes in the political structure of many municipalities just this spring, while political discontinuity has already before been a great challenge. So, and in the smaller municipalities where this kind of issues that Hanna mentioned, where one sort of topic can dominate the discussion, well, of course, it is not necessarily also all the time topics that deal with sustainability transition, let alone housing, but something else totally dominates the discussion, and then there is very little leeway for sustainability issues. Now, I like the fact that Juha was been looking at the municipal strategies, which are really interesting. Well, just by a coincidence, I've been looking at all the municipal strategies from 292 municipalities in mainland Finland, and this work is ongoing. However, what I found out is that while housing, for example, is very much present in I would say a majority of these strategies. However, climate-wise housing or housing combined with issues of sustainability and low carbon housing are only found in a minority of strategies. So the number has been increasing, but nevertheless. However, I can also say, well, the good side of this is that there are very few municipalities that don't deal with sustainability issues at all. So, but I think I found only 3 municipalities who don't really mention, well, other than maybe in the introduction word sustainability, but in relation with housing, for example, it is quite rare. Okay, but let's move on. All right, so some of the things that we've been dealing with in Decarbon Home, and I want to stress that we are a sort of a research and development project in the sense that we have 4 partner municipalities. We have Helsinki, Vantaa, Turku, and Joensuu, so quite large cities actually, and we've been talking with them and finding out about their challenges and also looking at a select group of other municipalities in certain studies. But what we found is kind of these challenges also talk about the role of municipalities, obviously. So the municipalities might have a lot of freedoms to act on their own, so they have a planning monopoly. However, they are also bound by a lot of national guidance, and national actors also are quite strong. So what we found out in a network study was quite clear that the housing and construction sector, the sustainability work that they do, and the kind of climate-wise housing aspirations that exist there are very much led by the Ministry of Environment. So it is a very central, and very important hub in the network. And well, we could say that national actors sort of are very important for the municipalities as partners also. But then of course, in the everyday actions, I think private sector actors are also very important. However, and I'll come back to that later, there are some challenges there. And just like I mentioned already, there is a tension between profit and public interest. And then the land use powers, where municipality, yes, they have a monopoly on land use planning. However, there are very little room for maneuver for most municipalities. Where I think there was it Hanna who said that yes, there are different kind of resources, and for most small municipalities, it is not only a question of resources, but it's also a question of the local culture and political will to make things happen in this sense. However, it is not so simple. It's also a question of being lean. So in a small municipality, individuals matter. Whereas in Helsinki, for example, there are concerning climate issues, there are more than 100 different groups in the city administration that deal with climate issues. And they don't really communicate that well. So where do you make things happen? There are, of course, some strategic issues that are happening, but many things are pretty much lost in those groups. Whereas in a small municipality, it might be 3 people who can pretty much create good, or also prevent good from being created. Okay. Okay, so this is how municipalities. What is the time, by the way? I have no idea. All right. No. This is how municipalities saw their housing future when we were talking with them, and there are a lot of positives. I think these are mostly the planners. The planners thought that goals can be achieved. However, stricter regulations and were also hoped for, and slow change in some circumstances was sort of seen as a challenge. And then there were also quite a bit of risks seen, and indeed the resource question was deemed very important. Okay, so I'll quickly go through a case study that we've done in order to find these solutions for carbon-wise housing. And in this study, what we did was we started with the municipalities. We started a sort of collaboration where we saw that there was need to look at housing from a little bit different perspective, and we decided to have this kind of concept of housing as a service, and especially climate-wise housing as a service, and look at different residents' roles, and especially look at what kind of multi-actor processes are taking place in the municipalities. And therefore, we arranged this kind of very practical collaboration with our 4 municipalities. We walked with the planners on 2 occasions on I think every municipality. We looked at the strategic documents in detail. We also arranged interviews and collected diaries from citizens. And most importantly, we held a workshop series where we tried to sort of find out what the common issues were and how we could find solutions to them. So it was this kind of set of workshops that took place. And I think basically two kinds of issues came up where there was need for some further action, and one is sort of creating concrete actions from the visions that the cities have. And of course, when we had big municipalities, their visions were kind of well explicated, and they also have resources for implementing them. However, there was also challenges like, for example, how to deal with these mull issues that seem to put quantity over quality over environmental issues. But nevertheless, we did find out that there are a lot of tools that are already somehow in use. However, none of these were deemed quite fully satisfied. So it is a complex environment within the municipality. And likewise, a residents' participation in this kind of low carbon work, while you could say that some participation exists outside the land use planning system, but it is very small scale compared to the overall volume of service provision, for example, in the municipalities. So stuff like like participatory budgeting, for example, which is I think very promising. However, it is very small scale and also only to be found in very few municipalities. And this kind of resident panels and forums, they are quite scarce also. And well, I'll skip that, and I'll go to finally within a minute. I'll go through the idea of what kind of actor is municipality. Okay, so what we basically, our main finding was that municipalities is a facilitator or a cooperator. The cooperation is key to everything. I think it was already mentioned that this is one of the basic facts of municipal life, that municipality does cooperation with a lot of actors, and so we also found out. One interesting feature is that when we talked with municipality administrators and other actors, they felt quite differently about this. So the city representatives or municipality representatives thought very well that they are importantly collaborative actors. However, other actors didn't quite see it so much that municipality would be a willing collaborator. So this is we've gathered this kind of cooperation list. So different kinds of collaborations that the municipality and especially the housing sector needs to do in order to make things happen for climate-wise housing, and we haven't fully analyzed how all of these collaborations function. However, all of these actors have thus far been also included in our research, so we know at least something about there. But this is what I wanted to show was that when we talk about municipality as an intermediary, as an organization that makes things happen, then there is a lack of ideas of functions of the kinds of things that need to be done. So, and now, sorry, I will end with this. So this is the final conclusion. So that what is the municipality need to do in order to support carbon-wise housing? So it needs to produce information, produce advice. It needs to enable and encourage the citizens, especially the private businesses, and then it needs to provide support through both traditional tasks, but also maybe through things like one-stop shops and this kind of new service solutions. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, so perhaps if you have questions to Vesa, you can think of them, and maybe I just hand over to Riikka to facilitate the panel, that we can then, if there are questions to Vesa, we could take those first. And if you want me to sit in the under the table.
I want to stand here. Take the seats if you want. Here, please. Eeva, please come join. Vesa and Hanna. Yes, and Minna, please. There is a yes.
The camera is
Camera.
not in camera, but I can see in the team. The camera is pointing. Yeah.
Wonderful to be here. We stop recording now. Thank you for participating, everyone. They're online. So